Well, thanks for joining me. How's it going?
It's going. How are you?
Good. How's the week? It's been crazy?
It's been busy. It's been
Yeah.
busy. So yeah, but not bad busy, just busy.
Yeah. Nice. Well, this is going to be like we'll start with the questions that you wrote out, but we'll probably meander a bunch more because I'm excited to talk about you've told me exciting things before that I want to dig more into.
Okay.
So I guess why don't you start by telling us a bit about THW, like as a firm, who are you guys? Where are you?
All right. Do you want me to be like a script like what I had already written? Because I don't have that in front of me. So
No,
this
no,
is
no. There's
more
no
at.
script. This is
All
just a
right.
conversation.
All right.
Yeah. This is just like we're
So so yeah, we're a multidisciplinary firm. So we have interiors, land planning, and architecture. The vast majority of our business is senior living. So we do some airport work, specifically for we do like club rooms, things like that for airlines. But yeah, I would say the a lot of our business is senior living, and it's all ranges of it from affordable all the way up to multi-million dollar kind of things, and everything in terms of size wise from a couple of smaller units all the way up to 1,500 unit type of developments that take years to put together. And we also do campus planning, um, and capital planning services for a lot of our clients.
got it. And you're Atlanta. Is THW based in Atlanta?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, we are about to celebrate what, 70 years
Oh
now.
yeah. Whoa.
Yeah, so I think is it next year? I
Yeah.
think it is. Yeah, it's
Okay.
70 years.
And you're like 80-ish people, right? Something like that?
We're about 60-ish right now.
60-ish. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Nice. And have you guys always done senior living? Has that always been the thing?
You know, I would say for the majority of the firm's existence, I think long time back, the founding members realized that there was a very strong market for senior living. And there's not a whole lot of companies that do it. It's
Hmm.
really complex, right? And I think it's also underserved in a lot of ways,
Yeah.
where people, when you think of senior living, everybody has, conjures up these very dour, sad kind
Yeah.
of, old folk homes, right?
Yeah.
And that's not what we do. I mean, even the stuff that's affordable housing, we put a lot of effort into and take great care with understanding not only the client themselves, so the owner operator of the building or the developer, but also truly the end user of the building, right? People who are going to be living there. And so I think that's really what kind of set us apart, was that willingness to really do a lot of hand holding, do a lot of consulting, do a lot of really working with their budgets and helping them even find, you know, what the best outcome would be.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, I think very early in the career, in the firm's existence, before that, there was a lot more environmental design. And this goes back to 70s, 60s, and 70s. Yeah, we had done some really cool, like earthwork kind of buildings, and really focused on a lot of environmental design, and then somehow got involved with Delta and did a lot of like
Or not.
Delta Crown rooms or whatever they were called at the time. And so yeah, it was more varied, back then, and then they really solidified probably about the late '80s. We really had solidified around.
Got it. And so today, I mean, so your senior living clients, so we've talked about this, it's a lot of repeat stuff, right? Repeat clients.
A lot of our clients are repeat, and I think it's because of the effort that we put into really understanding them and really
Yeah.
working with them.
Yeah.
So we have our secret sauces, right? Of how we do the consultative stuff. Yeah. So like I said, even down to capital planning, where and just the analysis of a campus to be able to tell them, okay, here's really the best use of your money.
Mm.
right? So if
Yeah.
you're looking to do this, and this, and we don't do it as much anymore, right? There used to be, it really would be like almost like a 3 day, 4 day process where we would like go up there
Yeah.
and they would get all of their people, all the different facilities people. If it had a memory care component or a skilled nursing component, they would have nursing staff, like the head of the nursing, and they
Okay.
would all just gather around this huge table and just go through this over, for over a couple of days to really do that. I don't think they have as much time anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, one of the things we're trying to do is, okay, so how do we streamline that process and make it more, you know, in a couple of hours,
Sure.
how can we get as much information out of it? And obviously, we have all the technology now, so
Yeah.
it's easier to send somebody an Excel spreadsheet. It's easier
Yeah.
to do this kind of stuff and then bring it back
Yeah.
and do that process now. But there's still, that gathering around a table aspect really does help a lot, but ain't nobody got time for that anymore, unfortunately.
No.
It's
No. What?
expensive, right? That's an
Yeah.
expensive meeting to have all of your directors, for three
Yes.
days sitting.
Yeah. Very much. And it's people are too busy. Like, yeah.
Yeah, let's see. Everybody's got too much to do.
Yeah.
Everybody has a busy problem.
Yeah. So I mean, you and I have talked about this before, even with like, well, Arcol, but just general feasibility. Would that 3 day workshop be typically when you would be there and you're gathering requirements, but you're also starting to put some numbers together for a project?
Yeah, like theoretically, by the end of that time period, or within maybe a day or two afterwards, you get kind of a final, you know, booklet, if you will, that has an analysis of the buildings, that
Yeah.
has, I mean, we go into it's basically a very big feasibility study slash capital planning thing. So
Yeah.
it could be just, for this one project or for the next 3 years of expansion. Here's how we're going to spend the money. Down to, even having financial people on board that would be representing banks and things like that, that would be then running numbers while this is going on, saying, okay, yeah, so you're going to be underwater if you
Yeah.
go this route. But if we phase it this way, this, that, and the other, then you can start pulling in monthlies in this respect. So you can then pay for the next. Yeah. And it got into some financial terminology, which started going over my head a little bit when we start getting into, points of this and that and the
Yeah.
other.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it was a big thing. And so, yeah,
Yeah.
by the end of that process, they could literally go back to their board or whatever, and boom, here's our plan
Fine.
of attack.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Was there 3D at that point, or is it mainly numbers?
It was mainly numbers.
Would you
It
like
was
the 3D? Like, would that have been, or like, was that ever an issue?
No, I mean, without going too deep into it, because this is one of those things where, like I said, this is sort of our secret sauce in a little
Yeah.
bit,
Yeah. Yeah.
in a way. But yeah, it was Excel based or spreadsheet based
Hmm.
in a way where the numbers, but you would also have kind of interactive plans at the time,
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
that they could hop around from building to building, plug in what they needed, and even they would break it down, right?
Yeah.
So there's an independent living building. Within the independent living building, we need this many units. We're going to need these types of amenities. And it would, the numbers would start to just, you'd see all of the everything scrolling kind of on a dashboard. It's pretty cool. And
Yeah.
a lot of companies, I know that there's some construction companies and things like that now that are starting to use more modern technology to do kind of similar things. So
Yeah. Yeah.
that's also one of the things we're always after is, okay, so how do we then improve our process? Like you said, streamline it, still keep it unique, keep it ours.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
people do catch up, right? You can
Oh,
capitalize on a cool process or a cool tool for so long, and then you gotta stay ahead of the game.
right.
As people will
Yeah.
catch up.
No, totally. So, I mean, how has that process changed? Like, it was a 3 day thing, and you said you're trying to get it way shorter. Is it kind of like a 2 hour kickoff now with all parties, and then you try and get numbers?
Yeah, I'm not deeply involved in that part of it. I kind of am on the periphery, right?
Yeah.
I'm the tech guy in a
Yeah.
lot of ways.
Yeah.
So the tools that I make obviously have to support the process. So it is a lot more either multiple meetings, right? So you start off with a meeting, you look at certain pieces and parts. It's also a lot of just, online discussion, sending emails back and forth. I think at this point too, sometimes, and depends on the client, right? That a lot of it is we have so many metrics and
Yeah.
so much knowledge of it right now that we can, kind of just already understand what it is that they're after in a lot of ways. And I think too, the market has changed a lot as
Yeah.
well. So it's not, I don't know. I don't know a way to explain that, but yeah, we can still get a lot done without having to have those 3-day kickoffs. And I think some of it too is they know their business better than they used to in a lot of ways,
Okay.
right? So when you think about it, we've been around for 70 years. A lot of these campuses have been around now for a multitude of years. They, like I said, they know their business better, right? And I think in some ways, we were on the leading edge with those people where they were still even trying to comprehend. Okay, so how do we make a go of this and actually turn it into a real business?
Yeah. So they have a better sense of go, no go
Yeah,
on the side now. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I think they do. And we still, and it also varies too, right? So you have your developer-driven type of projects that are, you have your nonprofit and your for-profit companies. The for-profit types of things are very much like any other developer-driven project. They pretty much know what they want. They've already done their own studies.
Yeah.
Versus the nonprofits, and a lot of times again they might team with a developer, but in a lot of ways they're also looking for it to be more consultative, that process. What is the market telling us? What have you guys been seeing?
Yeah.
And so I think those types where you get into the not for profits, it becomes more consultative. So I think that's maybe why we don't do it. You know, we don't need those 3 days anymore. Is that you have more for-profit companies that have also entered the market as well, and
Yeah.
the not-for-profits, like I said, they have a better handle on what they're doing and how they're doing it. But that doesn't mean that they still don't need a lot of you know consulting.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing too, and this is really interesting, is the not-for-profits, the residents themselves get involved. Like you'll have
Uh,
people that will donate money to do like a new art room or
yeah.
something like that, and they also have a very, very robust resident kind of group, if you will, that they like to be involved.
Yeah.
This is the place where they live, and they
Yeah.
want some say in it. They don't want some, external force just saying, this is what the building is going to be, suck it up or
Yeah.
drive on.
Sure.
And so, and that, I think that leads to a lot of the consultation as well, is spending some time listening to the residents, listening to the people who are going to be living there,
Yeah. Yeah.
and so I think that's really neat too. There was a project where I think, it could be something very simple, just no blue. We don't want any blue, in this room.
Yeah.
It's so, the interiors gets involved, or they'll go up there and they'll show a bunch of swatches like, nope, we don't like that.
Yeah. Yeah. No thanks.
And it's kind of fun in a lot
Yeah.
of ways, and I realize it can sometimes be frustrating, but it's really neat to be able to interact with those groups. And I think that's different from a lot of other architecture, right? If you're doing an
Yeah.
office building, or you're just doing a just an apartment building or something like that, you're not really interacting with the people who are really truly going to be
No.
using
No.
it,
Yeah.
living in it, and that's kind of a wonderful thing.
That's cool. And how far into the process does that go? Like you guys, when you've developed plans, do you go and consult, or is it more upfront the consultation?
A lot of it's up front, and
Yeah.
even then it can happen throughout the process too. um, and we try to limit that, right, because it does add a lot of cost to the
More
project if,
versus.
late in design development or early construction documents, you suddenly
Yeah.
get the residents involved. Or so we try to really build that into the process. Excuse me.
Yeah.
And I think it also depends on where the funding's coming from, things like that. But yeah, obviously with anything, the earlier you can get the input, the earlier you can get the decisions done, the better it goes. Because not
Yeah.
only does it add cost to the design process, it adds cost to the construction when you have to start delaying it. And sometimes there are just flat out deadlines, right? You've got to close on a property, or you have to close on a loan by X,
Yeah.
or you're gonna lose it, or your interest rates are gonna get hiked, or something like that. So
Yeah, right.
yeah, it's a lot of balancing.
Okay, yeah, interesting. And I mean, so you and I have talked about this a bit before too, but the idea of like a napkin sketch initial consult thing, like where, so you meet with residents and whoever, whatever parties, you get all the requirements. At what point and who is it that starts to paint a vision of what it looks like? Do you like your current process? Do you start pen and paper? Do you jump right into Revit? Like,
Okay, so sometimes it depends on what the RFP is
yeah,
asking for.
yeah,
So sometimes we'll start doodling, at the RFP stage on a
okay,
project,
yeah,
depending on how much information they've given us and what they're asking for. A lot of the times it really is more of a discussion of process and how we work with them. But um, we've got several that we're looking at right now that we're already starting to do some mass modeling and some numbers on it just to get a feel for what the site's going to be.
yeah,
But yeah, it's so the way that we operate is we have sort of our design team, if you will. And I know that's different from some other firms where, everybody, you just kind of divvy out the projects around the
yeah,
office, and this team's going to take this project. And so no, we've got several front end designers, and it really a lot of times starts with our land planning group. So uh, Jake, who is the head of our land planning group, is absolutely brilliant with, and has been doing this for so long that he just understands how big a building needs to be
mhm,
um, on the site and how much it's going to take up. But he also really, especially when we're talking about like greenfield development, really is deeply attuned to bringing the inside and the outside together, really creating these wonderful spaces outside as well. And so, yeah, we'll start with that as sort of a site plan. And then at the same time, we have Eston, who is our head kind of architectural planner, designer. And again, these two, along with the principals, have this kind of encyclopedic knowledge. The minute you say, I'm looking at 150 independent living units at this sort of market rate, they're like, ting, 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 like the numbers are already going in their heads. They
yeah,
know that, okay, so the building's going to need to be, you know, X many square feet
yeah,
to, and again how these things are going to stack. And so yeah, it does start with a lot of sketching. And quite frankly, as heavy as I use Revit when I'm doing my own designs, I always start with a pencil as well, just
feels
to
good,
get something
right?
down on paper. I don't know of any software, and Arcol's close in terms of
Yeah,
being able to really be like a three-dimensional sketch, right?
yeah,
In
yeah.
terms of that massing study. But yeah, pencil is still just we always start
Unbeatable.
there.
Yeah,
Yeah, we always start there.
yeah, yeah, makes sense. Okay, so then even in that case, and we've heard this from other people too. I mean, they know 100 by 150 is a typical parking garage that fits X amount of stalls, and so
Yeah, you
you're
start
kind of
getting these kind of
the
rules of
scale.
thumb.
Yeah, yeah, got it, got it. Okay, okay. So these guys are hand sketching or whatever. Are they also like Jake and I can't remember the other person you just mentioned, but
Dustin.
Dustin?
Mhm.
Are they then also going into Revit after that, and or does that go to somebody else to start?
They typically don't go into Revit at all.
Okay.
Dustin will. Well, part of the problem with Jake is that lane planning doesn't use Revit. They're in Civil 3D.
Yeah.
So because they really live between the civil engineer and architecture, and they do topography studies and grading studies and things like that. So for them to be able to communicate well with the civil engineer, it makes sense for them to be on a platform that marries that a little bit better. Dustin will come back into the project later on when he's doing design reviews or checking up on things, stuff like that. But a lot of the time that then gets handed off to the actual architecture team at that
Yeah.
point,
Yeah.
which we got project manager, project architect, staff working on it, things like
Yeah.
that. And Revit, typically not a quote unquote design tool,
Yeah.
right? You can use it like that. There's not a lot of people who know how to use it like that, because the minute you start seeing actual dimensions and numbers and things like that, it kind of takes away that kind of ability to just draw a line,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
do some things off of it. So Yeah, they would typically then kind of hand that off and just work very closely with the team as we start getting to real square footages and things like that.
Got it. Okay, perfect segue. I was gonna say now right into it. Like why why are you excited about Arcol? Or like where do you see it fitting in? Where does it go in
That
there?
middle ground, right?
Yeah,
That
yeah,
transition from paper to Revit, right? And even then, and even having it bleed more forward into that front end, right?
yeah,
So yeah, I see them, and Jake's excited about the ability to actually move the ground up and down, which again I haven't seen in a whole lot of projects where we can start understanding, especially in a lot of our larger campuses, start
yeah,
understanding. Okay, so these buildings are actually sitting like this, which means
yeah,
that if we're going to do a bridge, the bridge is going to be connecting here, and even Revit that winds up being very difficult and
yeah.
less efficient. So I can see it fitting, sliding more into the front end,
Hmm.
where
Yeah,
instead of really doing a quick hand sketch of something and then Dustin hopping straight into Arcol instead of something like SketchUp, where he wants to do blocking and stacking on these things, like let's color code these skilled nursing units versus the 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, IL, AL,
yeah.
that kind of thing. And that's, I just did that on another one of our projects for an RFP. And
Mm.
again, getting them really comfortable with how that functions. And in that situation, I actually went in there and actually, drew the rooms
Yeah,
instead of just saying this floor is an independent living floor with this efficiency.
for
And
sure.
that did take a little bit longer, but I mean, obviously, it's going to take a little bit longer to draw
Yeah,
more lines, right?
yeah, yeah, of course.
Um, and then that massing, then we feel really good about square footages. We feel really good about the fact that this is feasible. We're trying to build costing into it, things like that, where we can start getting a better read on costs. And that's tricky these days right now with the way that cost goes up and down. But at least,
Yeah,
can we at least get them an order of magnitude, right? A lobby space is going to cost you 350 a square foot,
sure. Yeah.
stuff like that. And
Do
then,
you do like, because I know
yeah,
we lots of people are excited about that part of Arco. Like, do you do that in your existing tools? Like, were you doing costing stuff in Revit at all, or how are you were
on our
scheduling?
analysis stuff, yeah, I had built in a bunch of parameters into room objects
Yeah,
and
yeah,
area objects depending.
yeah,
So we could run, again, an order of magnitude kind of costing
yeah,
where, we might even have it set up where it's more like an A to E cost, and you just assign that value to your room. You can color code it,
yeah,
things like that. Where, and again, you can essentially show the client a heat map, right?
yeah,
Boom, here's your expensive areas, and obviously your corridors are cheaper, your units are going to be this, and they can get an understanding of where the cost of the building is coming from. So yeah, I mean it's absolutely doable
yeah.
in Revit, but like I said, it's there's something about Revit where people immediately get overly technical with it, and I
Sure.
think they overthink stuff for me.
And you got to set
It's
it up. You got to make
Yeah,
sure.
you got to set it up. Yeah, templates
Yeah,
can help, but
yeah,
yeah, but there's still a lot of just extra technical stuff, like bringing in a site plan, bringing in, all this other stuff, and there are plugins and all
yeah.
that kind of stuff. But still, that just, when you're in a more sketchy, massy environment, it
You want to move fast.
there's a
Yeah,
psychological factor to it.
totally,
Yeah.
totally.
And
Yeah,
and honestly, the mass tools in Revit are not designed for what we're talking about.
yeah,
You can't do it.
yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah. Yep, this is what we hear. That
and
makes
believe
sense.
me, I've tried. I've tried. I spent months trying to put together mass tools
Oh
in
yeah,
Revit, and it worked, but mm.
yeah. That's the one thing I never used in Revit was the mass tools. I never got into it. There's always levels and walls for me.
But see, that's the other thing. It's extra difficult. It's not like SketchUp. It's
Yeah,
not like,
yeah. It's
it's not
rigid.
like Arcol. It's not like where you can just draw a shape, extrude it, come back in and subdivide it and things like that. It's not how the mass tools work in Revit.
Yeah,
And no matter how much I tried to simplify
yeah,
it, it was still just overly complex. And, one of the rules that I have lived by throughout my entire career is, we shoot for not the lowest common denominator, but we kind of have to hit the middle of the bell curve
mm,
of the way that users understand how to use a piece of software, and the
Sure.
simpler the better when it comes to a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
We would get in arguments all the time. I would have my team and we get in an argument. Well, that's not the right way or the most efficient way. I'm like, okay, well, here's the deal. For you, yes, you can make, this piece of software do backflips, right? But you're on the top end of that bell curve,
Right.
and if you have to explain what you did to me,
Yeah.
for me, 3 times, there's no chance of somebody in the middle of that bell curve being able to do any of that. It's like, so
Yeah.
again, really, again, finding a simple, effective tool that works the way a designer thinks, not the way a programmer or a BIM technician thinks.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is
Yeah.
architects live in this weird realm that's highly technical, but also very highly artistic at the
Yeah.
same
Creative.
time.
Yeah.
And not everybody's going to be a BIM wizard. They're
Yeah.
just not. And
Yeah.
so we have to design our processes around what is actually the most efficient in terms of process and workflow, maybe not necessarily the most efficient way of using the tool or the most correct way of using the tool, because it doesn't make any sense if only 5% of my office can actually utilize it.
Yeah.
It's
Right.
dumb.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, and you want to be able to somewhat standardize across the office too, that everybody's
Right.
doing kind of the same thing.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, I do not expect nor ask anyone to ever be, a wizard when it comes to this stuff. They're architects, right? Their job is to put together a really good set of documents to build a building, and you have to know your tools well.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean I need everybody making families. In fact, I don't. That would just be pure anarchy.
Yeah. That's a bit, man.
And again, there's that leap from being able to draw walls and put a building together, and then making an actual family tool with all the parameters and everything. That's a big jump.
Yeah.
That's not A to B. That's A to X in terms of a jump, in terms of understanding how to use the software. And I think people sometimes get offended when I say I don't expect you to be able to do that. I'm not saying anybody's dumb. It's
No.
just that there's
No.
there's there's a certain level of understanding the software that I really don't expect, and I don't ask people, and they shouldn't. That's the other thing; they shouldn't have to.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
should be able to focus on what they do, which is designing and documenting buildings, not messing around with trying to program software.
100%. 100%. Even when you talk about data and design, like you shouldn't have to worry about that. It should just happen while you model.
Yeah, and data is the same thing, right? Creating a new parameter to calculate, whatever that you start getting into, if then statements and stuff like that, and that goes over the vast majority of people's heads. Again, not because they're dumb,
Yeah. Yeah.
but because that's just not the realm that they need to live in, and I don't need them clogging up their brain with having to worry about that. What I need them to do is be able to use the tool effectively to get what they need to get done.
Yeah.
So again, and that's one of the things that drew me to Arcol, which is it's a simple interface. The user experience is straightforward, far more straightforward than a lot of the other tools. And whether it was Forma or there were, can I say other software
No, you
names?
can
Should
say
I?
whatever you want. Yeah. Don't worry about it.
I don't know how this is getting published, and I don't want to get in trouble.
Yeah. No.
Autodesk suddenly cuts off our licenses,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
trash talking us. And again, but that's just the way the tools are, right?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it was that simple. It's a much simpler interface, and um, so it's easier for people to get around in there. And there were some where it was like menu after menu after menu of drop downs,
Yeah.
just to add a new something.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's never going to catch on.
No, that's pain.
Busy people don't want to learn that. Busy people want something that feels familiar, feels like a tool that a designer would use, want to understand the data without having to think too hard about how to put the data in there.
Mm-hmm.
Or, again, they don't need to be creating nested if then statements to get information out of it. Nobody wants that. And again, that's my job. That's why I'm here, is to create that so that they can get what they need to get done.
Yep.
And so that was one of the things. Like, so we went through, 3 to 4 different pieces of software. And I sat down with the team and I said, okay, so Okay, so I was technical pre-sales
Mm.
for an Autodesk reseller, so I was in
Mm.
that channel. I know how to make a piece of software look absolutely magical, which is why I don't trust demos online.
Sure, of course.
I
The
think what
smoke and mirrors and
Yeah, yeah, no. And when you also have a really, so if you're going live and you got like a good salesperson with you, and there was one salesperson where she and I were like an amazing team. She could tell when I was trying to set something up, and she could like distract. So it's like
yeah,
going to a David Copperfield show, right?
yeah,
She could
yeah,
distract over here while I'm setting something up, and she brings the audience attention back, and then poof,
yeah.
there's
Very
the
nice.
smoke, and then when you can actually get a room full of architects to go, yeah.
That's, that's the money. Yeah.
Now they have no idea what I just did there, but I can make it look magical. So I would actually watch the demos myself. I would download the software. I would get in there and actually play with it.
Yeah.
So from our standpoint, understanding how we work, and while I couldn't answer all the questions, and we did this with y'all, right? We
Mm.
finally got it down to kind of a targeted set of questions. We know it can do X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
We want to know a little bit more about it. So that was our process, was me going through all of that, and then we kind of narrowed it down, to maybe a top two or three. And so it was a lot. It's a lot of me on the front end. I also hope that I've been in the company long enough to really understand, and I try to be a very, very good open communicator with teams in terms
Mm.
of what they're looking for. Well, let me go back and tinker with that, and I give you a better answer on it. Or no, I have no answer for that. That'll be a question for a live demo
Yeah.
or a Q&A with the software team at that point.
Yeah.
So, wow,
Wow.
I think we really meandered off the road on that one. Sorry, that was.
No, no, no. That's fine. That's kind of what the point of this was meant to be. So no, that's totally fine. I've kept you over, so sorry, but we can.
Oh, is it okay? I don't even have like a time
No, good, good.
thing,
Yeah.
so
No, I know
I'm
you're
just
busy,
here.
dude. So we can. I can. Well, let me do this here.
Well, let's make sure you get your questions or whatever you wanted to hear done.
That's
I don't want to cut you
all I
off.
wanted to
So,
hear. Yeah, I wanted to
okay.
learn about your firm, how you did things, how Arcol helps, how you chose us. I think we hit all the points. Yeah.
Okay.
So I'll stop. Well, so do official.
Stop the
Thanks.
stop the
Thanks for
recording.
joining. This was great. Thanks everyone for watching.